I just purchased the Nikon ZR and I thought I'd share some clips and some thoughts I had from a trip to Japan. All of these clips were shot in R3D, the majority of them in 4K to save card space. I'm using no noise reduction and I've applied a subtle film look and a little bit of film grain in DaVinci. Most shots were handheld with no extra stabilization in post. I've also left the camera audio in for those that are interested. The strongest thing about the files that I've noticed so far is how organic they look. I'm just finding the image to look really natural. Some brands are worse than others on this, but I think most cameras secretly, or maybe not so secretly, apply quite a bit of noise reduction and digital sharpening in their video. And in my experience, it makes everything look just a little bit plasticky, so the ability to shoot in RAW and forego that is a huge plus for me on this camera. I think that alone takes the images much closer to something you might see in a movie theater. The files definitely don't do well with underexposure, so I found myself shooting at ISO 640 or 500 to keep myself safe if I accidentally underexposed. The form factor is great because, being so small, people don't really seem to notice it as much as they would with a bigger camera. Obviously, on most professional shoots, it will need to be beefed up, but for this kind of situation, I found it to be really great. That being said, as you can see, the IBIS isn't great, but I also say that as someone who has very shaky hands and whose last camera was a Lumix, so take that with a grain of salt. I've seen some arguing about whether or not it deserves the title of cinema camera. Given the somewhat lackluster dynamic range performance and the lack of cooling fans and some of the other decisions on the body design, it would definitely not be the most practical camera for a film set. I almost see this camera as a sign of the times. I think we're getting to a point where your budget is really not the limiting factor when it comes to image quality. So, as a freelance videographer who has aspirations for cinematography in the future, this camera works perfectly for me.